Find something funky on there. Just in case we gotta rip this joint up.
So here's the thing. I'm looking at some of the country's finest thugs, and of course, young Mozart in a go-kart over there. People love great bank robbery stories, so let's give them something bold and brazen as to talk about over their lattes.
What's you listening to? Oh, let me check. Tequila!
This shit is bananas, dog.
Tequila.
Well, aren't you the lucky one?
That's right. You tell him, baby.
That's some Oscar shit right there.
You're damn right.
I'm sorry, ma'am.
What the
Guys, congrats on making one of the coolest films I've seen in a really long time. It's amazing. It's incredible filmmaking.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Let's start from the beginning. You know, most filmmakers who do car chases say that filming a car chase is really the most boring thing that you could possibly film if you're doing it right. So what made you want to make a movie that was almost all car chases?
I thought we had a water cup we had to share in the middle. I was like, who's gonna get that? But I realized he had one over there. I'm sorry.
Yeah, the car chases are tough to make. Like, they're as painstaking to make as they are fun to watch. But, you know...
Fun to edit?
Yeah, oh, yes. When it all comes together, it's great. And when you actually... The actual shooting of it is amazing. It's just like the setup for each shot, because it's kind of very dangerous stuff. But when you're actually like shooting the shot and you're traveling at like 80 miles an hour on a public freeway with all the actors, that's pretty exciting.
Go back to the beginning of when you came up with the idea for this movie. Was it the music first? Were you listening to music and you were just sort of like, you know, it's amazing to watch action sequences cut beautifully to music. What if I could create an entire movie that was solely using music consistently? Like,
it's sort of like that. With the first song in the movie, which is by the John Spencer Blues Explosion, I heard it when I was 21, and I would listen to that track and I would imagine this car chase. And I couldn't listen to the track without imagining this car chase. So then I thought, I have to come up with a movie that's as cool as this vision that I keep having. So that basically became the movie. So it was, I love like action movies and car chase movies, but it was inspired by the music in that way.
and that first scene also feels like you behind the movie sort of coming up with the idea of the movie, really. It's like I could imagine hearing that song and being in a car and being like, what if I was in a car chase right now?
Well, that's pretty much it, is I heard the song and then I thought, well, what if the getaway driver has put the song on? What if
you had
he's
Ansel
like...
basically doing you before the actual car chase started, though, which is
It's like
pretending
me,
to drive
but taller. Yeah. And more handsome.
No.
So what was the first thing that you got for this movie, the script or the soundtrack?
The first thing I got from this movie was Edgar. We had a meeting, and we really got along, and we talked about music the whole time. We didn't talk about movies at all. We just talked music. And I didn't really know why, but I was cool to talk about music with him. And then he said, I have a script that I think you're going to like because it has a lot to do with music. And the main character, you might be right for. So, you should read it. And I read it, and it was on this iPad. They made a special app for it, and I had never read a script like this. And it had little logos at the top of every page. And if you clicked the logo, you heard the song that went with the scene. So that if you guys saw Baby Driver? Yes, okay, cool. Some of you guys have. The movie, it's moving to music at all times, and the music that I heard when I read the script is the music that's still in the movie now. So to answer your question, I got them both at the same time.
Well, that leads to another question, Edgar. How much is in your script in terms of choreography and the sort of filming techniques that you're going to use? Because I think of a script like Boogie Nights or something where the lenses, the millimeters of the lenses are in the script. And this is so choreographed, I'd imagine that you want the reader to sort of see exactly what you're talking about on the script. How much is in there in terms of technical details?
Quite a lot, because he's having to get across the fact that you're sort of seeing the action and hearing the music at the same time. So it's quite a difficult thing to write, because like, especially as a writer-director, it's like you're writing down the action. It's like, who am I trying to communicate this to? I know what it's going to look like, but you sort of have to get across on the page what it's going to feel like, which is a weird thing to do that in writing, but that's kind of what you have to do to get the actors on board and the studio on board, that they understand that this is going to be something a bit different.
Like, I think of the opening credits sequence that where Ansel's dancing down the street and going to get coffee, and I think of the scene in the laundromat, how beautifully choreographed and staged that is between the two of them with their two heads and kind of flowing around each other. I'm curious how much of that was in the script and how much of that did you want to communicate to them, or did you sort of figure out while you were shooting a little bit?
No, all of that was kind of written in, and if it wasn't written in, it was in the storyboards. So there's not really much that, like, the only way to get through a movie like this, because it's kind of probably cost less than you think, is the only way of getting through something like this is like, it's just like, come to work meticulously prepared, and we rehearse the whole thing. So we're not coming on set to kind of figure out what we're doing. We're coming on set to shoot the scene. So all of that stuff, like the laundromat scene is a cool one, because there's like, I don't know, there's like 40 machines behind kind of like Ansel and Lily, and in each washing machine they have a different color. And I kind of thought when I was looking at it, I said to my production designer, I said, so could we get them all, like, all the machines hooked up to one switch so they can all go at the same time? He said, let me find out. And then he was like, no. And I said, so what are we going to do? He goes, we've got to pump quarters in between every take. So it's an amazing thing to watch, is between every take is watching the art department go chung, 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 chung. So it was stuff like that. But like, it was some things like at the coffee run sequence, which is the opening credits where Ansel goes to get the coffees and back all in one shot. You know.
Beautiful. It's a beautiful one shot.
Oh, thank you. It was the first day of the shoot. But I had neglected in the script. There's one thing the studio kept saying, why do we need this coffee scene? I said, oh, because it's all in one Steadicam shot. And they said, oh, that's good information to know. So we should. Your response was, oh, because it's all one shot. It's going to be technically difficult. That's why we need this. Well, it's also the opening sequence, and you really establish. The first scene of the movie is like him doing a badass car chase, and then in the second scene you see him getting the coffee, so you realize, oh, he's an amazing getaway driver, but he's still like the gopher. He still has to do the coffee run, and he's still like just a big kid at that point in the movie. So that's what that scene's about.
Loves music and dancing. That entire shot is him sort of dancing back and forth from getting
when
the
he's
coffee.
Still in his bubble, but over the 112-minute running time, you're going to see that bubble get popped.
Ansel, what was it like playing Baby Driver? Because seeing you come here, you're a very gregarious, outgoing guy. You're jumping around. You're saying hello to everybody. And Baby's a fairly shy character, a pretty internal character, except for when he starts dancing around Joe.
I'm very shy.
Adorable!
No, I mean, I think there are parts of everybody that's shy in their own ways, but when you're around certain people or with a certain group that you feel you don't really belong in. So Baby, when you first meet him with the heist crew, with the criminals, he's serious and quiet. But in the very beginning of the movie, the second they go into the bank, he starts singing along and dancing along to the Blues Explosion. And then they come back, and then he's serious again. So yes, he is a shy character, but just around certain people. I think internally, he is a kid who wants to enjoy himself and listen to music, and it's just sort of that his life is a little bit serious sometimes when he, has to be part of a bank robbery. But there's always different sides to characters, and with Edgar, we spent a lot of time sort of preparing Baby and finding his different sides. You see him with Joe, his foster dad, and you see him be parental. You see him alone in the car. You see him be kind of silly and dancing along to music. You see him with the criminals and being shy, and then you see him toward the end of the movie where he has to stand up and be a man and protect this girl that he has fallen in love with. So you see a lot of different sides to him.
He's actually a fairly smart, almost calculating guy in the sense that he knows when to bring out different aspects of his personality.
Yeah, he knows, like, if I say too much, I might get myself in trouble. Toward the end of the film, he really gets himself kind of into trouble, and he's able to talk his way out of it, and all of a sudden you see him talk a bunch. But when he doesn't need to talk, he doesn't talk. which is always interesting as an actor to be able to sort of pull your punches, and then when you need them, you know, you have that one moment with Bats, with Jamie Foxx's character, where you see him emerge and become, you know, have to be tough.
You know, when people talk about car chase movies, they always talk about movies from the 70s and think for some reason that the best car chases are in the 70s. But with Hot Fuzz, you know, you talk a lot about action movies in the mid-90s and in the early 2000s, and no one really talks about the great car chases that are from that era of action movies. Was that more of your sort of guiding beam for the car chases in this movie, or were you thinking more about like the French Connection and stuff like that?
Yeah, I think, you know, like there are lots of great chases in the last like 15 years. You got the Bourne films, and you've got like Bad Boys 2 has a great chase in it.
Oh yeah, Bad Boys.
And so I think...
This has an unbelievable car chase.
I know, it's crazy. It's craziness. And John Wick and Drive, obviously, and Ronin, although that's in the 90s. I mean, I guess when I was writing this, I started more thinking about the ones that I watched when I was a kid. And that is like, you know, The Driver, Bullet, French Connection, Vanishing Point. And I don't know, I mean, a lot of the things back in those days is there's like zero CGI in those movies. You're just watching like badass driving. So we actually, like, in this movie, we did as much of it as we could. 95% of it is in camera on the roads, including the shots with the actors, you know. So it's not just the stunt driving, it's all the shots with like Ansel and Jamie and John kind of just on the streets going really fast, which is like, you know, even if you don't really understand what sort of like green screen is or effects are, I think the audience can just feel it. It just feels real and it feels more visceral, and therefore it's just more exciting, you know? And actually, I think just performing those sequences, it's just more intense actually being on the freeway going 70 miles an hour.
Yeah, we had some pretty cool things we got to do. And the nice thing is that, you know, while they let me do a little bit of driving, for the most part, the big stunts I didn't do, but you're in a car and I'm, you know, pushing a wheel around because I know how I'm supposed to be driving, but really there's a guy secretly in a pod above me doing the driving, and I'm weaving between cars and drifting and everything, and I'm like, this is the coolest virtual reality video game I've ever played.
So you're actually weaving in between cars, but you're not controlling it at all, but you
Yes,
are in the car
but that
that's
actually
doing
happened.
You have to like match exactly what the driver is doing. It's not like a green screen thing where you can just sit there going, nah. You have to like literally, you have to do exactly what he's doing up there. So
Yeah.
it's quite a feat to pull off.
Yeah, can I ask, I mean, maybe this is too nerdy or too in the weeds, but how do you actually choreograph that? Is it just like that it's scripted and at this second and after this one you turn this way and after this one you turn this way? Or is he sort of in the pod guiding you a little bit?
Well, some of that stuff is like planned out, but then when you get down to the actual nitty gritty of it in terms of how to do the stunts, you know, we had this amazing driver called Jeremy Fry, who's basically like sort of, you know, the main sort of driving double, but also somebody who'd like talk you through in front of every take what you should be doing and in what order, you know.
Yeah, I mean, every car on the road obviously is a stunt car, and they're just like precision drivers, and they drive at a certain pace, so that way, you know, the car that's getting chased can drive. And he says, okay, you're gonna go over this embankment here, and then you're gonna drift a turn here, and then go to the right of this car, left of this car. So, you know, let's go over what you're gonna do with the steering wheel. Remember, when you do this drift here, you're gonna put your foot on the brake, pull the e-brake, soft input to the right, and then counter steer left, and then shift back into second. And then, so he said, this is what you're gonna be doing, and then you learn the choreography, but really someone else is doing the driving, obviously. But that way,
That's so much fun.
when they film you and this is happening, it doesn't look like, sometimes you see a driving movie and someone just goes like, I'm turning left, and
Which is not how you really do it.
yeah. So I got to take a lot of stunt driving lessons with this guy, Jeremy, and learn sort of in theory everything Baby could do, so that way in the car I look like I might know what I'm doing.
Edgar, what was the most difficult thing to film in this movie?
The car chases? Yeah, the car
But
chases.
no, but specifically within the car chases.
I think it's just like those sequences. I mean, the end sequence of the movie, which is like a sort of like a car duel, essentially, that was like a real like bear. I mean, most of the action scenes are just tough, but anytime you bring cars into it, it's just an extra level of concentration and precision, and, you know, like sort of cars get trashed, and, you know, usually like it's that thing where, you know, when you do like a sort of like somebody ramming into the car and stuff, and you hear the stunt guys go, okay, that one's dead. Let's get the next charger. You know, and it's like, okay, there goes another 30 minutes until the next one comes in. So you're just seeing this thing. And there's also like these, I was always amazed by what I would call the kind of like the car elves, because like these chargers would get dragged off, and we maybe had like 8 chargers, and then they would be back the next day. And it's like, you know, that these kind of like sort of wizards are there all night kind of repairing these like completely trashed cars.
You know, your previous films are, I think, hilariously self-referential of the genre that they're sort of taking part in. And while this has an element of that, it's not nearly as self-referential as the previous films. Was that intentional on your part? Was that something that you were trying to move away from, or just something that you felt this film didn't really warrant?
Yeah, I think it was just I wanted to make like a, you know, an action heist movie. I mean, it also has the musical element to it, but aside from that, I didn't want anybody to feel like they had to have watched anything else to be able to enjoy it. I mean,
No, if you have, it's also really fun.
well, you don't. There's no like required reading. Do you know what I mean? It's just like you don't have to have seen any of my other movies, and you don't have to have seen any other car chase movies. It just kind of like it is what it is, and you can enjoy it in that way. You know.
Yeah. And so, what's your favorite song on the soundtrack?
That's why I'm easy, easy like Sunday morning.
It was a brave choice to use, I think, in this film, and I think you used it incredibly well. Because that's not a song that hasn't been used before, and a lot of the songs in this film haven't been used before. But you found a way to use that song in a way that I don't think I've really seen before.
Yeah, it actually came up because everything else was written to the script, but then we were doing we did a little audition thing where we were doing some sort of choreography, and I sprang it on Ansel, because usually with things you get let actors prep. It's like, oh, get them to bring a song that they know. But me and the choreographer, Ryan Hefferton, said, what song do you know off by heart? And Ansel paused and then was like, Easy by the Commodores. And I was like, oh, I have that on my iTunes. Let's put that up. And then we did a little improvised scene to that, where I sort of said, okay, pretend like you're hiding from the police and there's like a dead body over there. And then Easy comes on and you can't help but sing along to it. And then the video is like amazing. And I think at that point during that video, which hopefully will be on the DVD, I was thinking, okay, this is the guy.
What was that like, getting that thrown at you, and then this whole scenario that you had to improvise while singing that song?
It was like a gift from God, because I was not vibing to the songs right. I mean, you know, there were songs I didn't know that well, and it was an audition, and you can sort of tell when things are going really well. And he said, let's try a song that you know. And when I said Easy, and when he turned it on, I was like, okay, I really know this song. I know the guitar solo, I know the drum fills. And during the scene, I could tell that, during the improv, I could tell that this was hopefully gonna make Edgar want me.
And it did.
And it did.
You can hear my cackling laugh in the video.
Yeah, he was like laughing and everything, and it was awesome.
Outside of Ansel, you have also like a great supporting cast: Kevin Spacey, John Hamm, Jamie Foxx, Lily. How did you go about assembling that cast?
I mean, I guess it was just the response to the material. Like, the only person that I knew ahead of the movie was John Hamm, and I wrote the part with...
Why is that?
I met him... It's so, quite bizarre. I met him when he first hosted SNL. I happened to be at SNL that night, because I'm friends with Bill Hader, and then John was hosting that night, and I met him at the party. And then I wrote the part with him in mind. And I think John is always a bit bemused about that. I said, I wrote this part for you. And he goes, okay, I'm playing a psycho, but thank you.
No, but you did the right thing. The best thing with John Hamm is, like, he's so good at always being, like, a little knowing. There's something about him, no matter how psychotic he is, there's something in his eye that's just funny. Like, he's just a very funny guy.
Well, that's a good thing about the characters played by Kevin, Jamie, and John. Or they all have a similar thing where they are all very dry and funny, but they also like can be really scary. And that's sort of what happens in the movie, is that you have some funny scenes with these characters because they all play either bank robbers or crime lords. And usually like the funny bits is lulling you into a full sense of security where something really bad is going to happen at any second. So that's one of the things that works great with those guys, is they're always like kind of like you said, sharp or a little bit arch, but it's always like masking some inner darkness that's about to spring out. So that's always like an exciting thing to watch, because I think people were sort of saying that watching the movie, saying about Jamie, saying like Jamie's so funny in the movie but also like really scary at the same time.
Yeah, he goes back and forth. I'm going to be coy about this next question because I don't want to give anything away, but where did the Monsters Inc. bit come from. It's like, when I saw the film, it garnered the biggest laugh of the whole movie. Everyone was shocked, and everyone went crazy for it.
I mean, I don't want to give too much away, but there's just a bit like early on you sort of see, like talking about Baby, the character, not really talking that much. You see things when he's like watching the TV. So pay attention when he's watching the TV, because pretty much every line that's on the TV, he then uses later in the film. Because I kind of thought a lot of people do. I used to do that as a kid, is that you kind of pick up things from sitcoms and stuff, or like movies, and then you try and pass them off in your own kind of like at school or whatever. So it's a sort of similar thing to that. So like every line that gets mentioned like on the TV that you hear little snippets of, he then ends up using. And like, the Monsters, Inc. thing was just something I was trying to find a line about friendship and teamwork, and I found that one. And then it was a thing about having to get Pixar to let you use a clip in an R-rated movie, which is not usual, and they let us do it, which is good.
Oh, really?
This guy is such a genius. I mean, every little bit in the film pays off. There's nothing that you see and it never comes back around. Everything is deliberate. And that's why I've seen the film 5 times now, and I'm still picking up on things. I mean, I was in the film. I was there every day of filming, and I'm still picking up on stuff. There's so many details. It's incredible.
What essentially we're saying is you have to see it 5 times.
At least.
In the theater, paying for it.
You have to pay to see it 5 times.
Opening weekend, 5 times.
It doesn't have to be on the same day. You can stretch it out over
But opening weekend.
Over opening weekend, yes.
I'm curious, Edgar, before I turn to the audience for questions, and maybe this is too technical, but what is your process like to sort of make sure that everything does pay off? Are you able to sort of start writing from beginning to end, and you're able to sort of construct it that way, or are you very much like note cards on the wall, and these are the ideas, and you have to make sure if this is going here, this is going at the end, and it's almost mathematical to a degree?
Sort of. I mean, yeah, I do all that stuff where you put the 40 postcards on the wall and stuff, and sometimes with things it's like sort of set up, twist. So it's kind of like you have a thing of like sort of like mention something twice and then flip it around for the 3rd time. Was that geeky enough for you?
No, that was great. Let's get a question from the audience. Who is it right here?
Hi. Hi, Edgar. First off, thanks for making one of the most original kick-ass movies of this year, alongside with Get Out and The Big Sick.
Listen to this guy.
And since you wrote this...
Strangely enough, Jordan Peele and Kumail Nanjiani and Emily Gordon are my neighbors. So I think maybe there's something magical about the area that we live in Los Angeles. It's very strange that you mentioned that we do all live really close to each other. So I'm now going to say that Los Feliz in Los Angeles is original film district.
So since you wrote this screenplay alongside directing it, and you had the script for over a decade, were there any, and you have like a killer soundtrack, was there any time that you listened to a different song and thought, no, I want this inside the movie, besides having all of this music that's in there?
I don't know. I mean, a lot of the stuff, like, very little changed. There were some songs that had dropped out. They were like hip-hop or dance songs where the artists themselves hadn't cleared the samples, and those things had to kind of drop out. But only like 3 or 4 of them. And in some cases, I like found the original track that they had sampled and used that instead.
And I love that you did that in the movie. There are numerous times in the film where like you think you're hearing the newer version, and then it sort of the sample plays out as long as it normally would, and you realize you're in the original version of that song. I love that you did that.
I know a lot of the audience go, oh, Dr. Dre. Oh, wait, no, it isn't.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, the script sort of changed, you know, like, I think the script got better, to be honest. It's like, I had a version of it like 6 years ago. I just kept working on it, and in fact, then through the casting, like through like getting Ansel on board and getting Kevin on board, I like kept doing tweaks to the script, so I think it got better.
Next question.
Hi, I wanted to ask how you came up with all of these different characters and why you chose to include them in the movie.
You asked the tough questions. I don't know. I think one of the ideas with the other characters in the movie is they're all sort of like characters archetypes of crime fiction and stuff, but they're all masking some kind of secret, or like usually the people, I think a lot of criminals are like presenting some kind of front. Even like Baby's character, as we're talking about, is presenting a front. And throughout the movie, you sort of like, everybody loses their front at some point. So you start to see who they really are, whether they actually turned out to be nicer than you thought they were, or whether they turned out to be way worse than you thought they were. But I think all criminals are putting up some kind of facade and some kind of fake name which is masking who they really are, and sometimes you might not want to know them anyway, but you definitely don't want to see the real person. So that's kind of what the characters were all having fun with that.
Next question.
Mr. Wright, from one film geek to another, I want to thank you for making original films. And I feel like Hollywood is kind of creatively bankrupt these days, and it's really refreshing to see original films. And I wanted to know how you think you can keep making original films where the Star Wars directors are fired, and Scorsese's last film only makes $7 million, and it feels like nobody wants to see serious films. And Ansel, how do you choose the films that you do and choose original films and interesting directors?
There's a lot to unpack there.
To be fair, I don't think anybody thought Silence was going to make more than $7 million when they made it, and they were just happy they got to make it.
I paid $15 to see it. I'm not part of the problem.
I did too. I loved it. Yeah.
I don't know. I mean, the truth of the matter is that, like, I mean, you just should. There's nothing wrong with, like, franchise movies. I just think there should be original movies alongside them. And, like, people sort of forget that back in 1977, Star Wars was an original screenplay. Alien was an original screenplay in 1979. Terminator was an original screenplay in 1984. So, you know, you can make, you know, sort of like, you can make original, like, popcorn movies. It shouldn't be a line in the sand where it's like franchise movies and then everything else is avant-garde, like awardsy stuff. You can make entertaining movies that are like original. Like Get Out is a great example of that. Get Out is like a film that like cost $4 million and made more money than King Kong, and that should be applauded, you know. So I think it's also about the audience. The audience has got to support those movies, and that's the thing. But I don't think original cinema is dead.
Is it difficult to get an original movie made?
Absolutely, yeah. It's like, you know, 5 times as hard, but it's worth doing.
What does that process entail, if you don't mind me asking, in short?
Well, I think you have to get, like, in terms of getting an original movie made, I think you just have to get the studio on board in terms of, like, is it something, A, that's commercial, but B, original enough that people will be excited about something new, getting a great cast on board, you know, making sure that it, like, doesn't cost so much that it's a huge risk. Those are all the factors of just getting something original made, you know?
I think I have time for one more question.
Hey guys, thank you for being here. Ansel, I want to ask you, you know, we've seen you in so many different variety of roles, like Fault in Our Stars and now this. So is there any kind of particular genre that you see yourself doing a lot of, or is there something you like have a favorite or anything like that?
Yeah. Well, I guess this is good because I get to answer his question too, which I forgot to answer.
I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. I don't really care about genre. I would play any character. I guess I sort of just look at 3 things when I decide if I want to do a movie, and it's if the script is good, if the director is good, and if the character is good. But that's really it. And I'm really in no rush to do movies. You know, like I would much rather do 1 good movie every 2 years than 3 bad movies every year, and then every 3 years have 1 movie that works out. I think that you can really tell when something is going to be good, and I had that feeling when I read the script and when I met with Edgar. It was so clear that this guy was going to do something special. It really is. It's about the filmmaker and about the story you're telling, and then, you know, up to me to say, is this a character that I think I would be able to play and be able to do, and that's really it.
No, I have to ask, this is the closest thing I think we've gotten to an original musical in quite some time. I can't think of anything off the top of my head in the past, you know, couple decades where it's an original musical, not based off of...
Well, it's not quite a musical in the sense of...
It's close.
You know, I think the thing is, I always like stop short of saying it's like a musical, lest people say, what, like Mamma Mia? No. It's so I always say it's like an action movie driven by music, because there aren't any original songs in it. It's just that the action sequences and also the other sequences are like powered by the music he's listening to. So it's not quite a musical, but it is like a very music-centric movie.
That said, we get choreographed kind of dance numbers at moments with Baby, and we get these choreographed car chases set to music as well. I'm curious if you ever want to do a musical, an actual musical, in your future, considering you know how to dance now.
Yes.
I don't know if you know how to sing at all. But.
Well, I started all this in musicals. I got into acting through musical theater and through dance, and I'm already starting to beg Edgar to do a musical.
Would you do a musical?
I would if it was the right thing, yeah.
Mamma Mia too, obviously.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'd love to. I think
Mamma
it's,
Mia 2, Here I Go Again. That's what it's called. That's the title.
The White Snake song is the theme running
No,
throughout it.
that's the second lyric in that chorus. Mamma Mia, here I go again. My,
Shit about
how can
Mamma
I...
Mia?
I don't know why I'm singing Mamma Mia. I don't know how we got into ABBA. You started it. I started it.
I continued it, and you picked it up as well. Guys, I have to let you go. I love the film so much. Congratulations. It's incredible filmmaking. It's so original, as many of you said. It's wonderful. It opens this Friday, right?
No, it opens tomorrow. It opens on
tomorrow.
Wednesday.
Ooh.
there are some screenings tonight.
Tonight.
There are some people, maybe you're gonna, there's a 7 p.m., there's a midnight. It's starting now.
Absolutely. Guys, Baby Driver, go see it. It's amazing. Thank you so much.